This episode of Walt Disney World Today is sponsored by Small World Vacations. Small World Vacations has a team of 40 agents who are authorized Disney vacation planners, and they're recommended by MouseSavers.com. They're dedicated to your dreams and your dollars, so get your free price quote by going to Small World Vacations online at www.wdwvacations.com. Newell, you know the tagline.
Where the magic begins.
There you go.
This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Monday, June 11th, 2007, and this is episode 268 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm Matt Hochberger from MGMstudios.org. That's right, MGMstudios.org. On the show today, it's Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Mike, tell me what is new in the world of Mouse World Radio.
We got a very exciting announcement coming up. I can't give it out yet because it's only for broadcasters, but Matt's been beta testing it, and I hear it's really, really cool.
It is very, very cool, but I can't say anything.
Yeah, you'll have to hang in there and wait.
I cannot be bribed. Well, I can, but not easily.
All I can say is upgrade your phone now.
Also on the show today is Mike Scopa of MousePlanet.com. Welcome, Mike.
I can't believe I've never used this opening, but here it is.
I don't know what attraction that's from.
Hurry back.
The old Haunted Mansion.
Oh, yes.
Well, on today's show, we're going to be talking about dining at Walt Disney World. You know, in the past couple of episodes, we've been talking about kind of primers for visitors who are either first-timers to Walt Disney World or perhaps someone who just wants to, get down to back to the basics of a trip. And today we're talking about dining at Walt Disney World because, you would think you'd think it'd be a really easy thing to do. Eat. You just go somewhere, pick up your hot dog, and be on with you. But really, eating at Walt Disney World it's half the adventure and sometimes half the fun. So we're going to be talking about the different kinds of places you can eat at Walt Disney World and some general information about that. So let's start. Scopa, why don't you first tell our listeners about the different venues of dining that you have at Walt Disney World?
Well, the first thing to keep in mind is that there are all kinds of options for all kinds of travelers down there. And there are people who, guests I should say, who go down and looking for elegant dining, and you can get elegant dining down there. It will cost you a pretty penny. And that elegant dining is in usually the deluxe hotels. Also a little bit in the theme parks. There are table service restaurants where you sit down, it's full service, where you have a server come to your table and take your order or whatever. There are buffets in the parks and in the resorts. Some of these buffets and table service restaurants offer character experience meals in which the characters will come to your table for photo opportunities and meet and greet opportunities. There are also what is called by Disney quick service meals. And quick service meals are usually those meals that can also be called counter service meals, where you go up to a counter and order some French fries or a hamburger, or you go into a restaurant and eatery and you're in line and you order something and you pay for it and you take it back to your table. The same thing can be said for food courts. The food courts are looked upon as being a quick service meals. Food courts are found at at most of the resorts. The deluxe resorts have the table service and the quick service, and sometimes the food courts. And those are basically the options. And there's also one more, Matt, and that is, of course, the snacks, where you could have an ice cream or a hot dog or a hamburger, or a turkey leg, God forbid. And that's basically it. It ranges from the simple snack, popcorn, to a full-service restaurant, and even more so, there are restaurants down there that actually require men to wear dinner jackets.
Well, let's start at the full-service restaurants, and these are the ones that Scopa talked about earlier. These are ones where you go to the restaurant, and these are, like they said, I mean, you're seated at a table, and a waiter or waitress comes up to you and brings you your food. Now, there are different kinds of full-service restaurants, like Mike said. You've got the traditional one. There's nothing to it. It's just a full-service meal. These are pretty standard, nothing really to report here. You've got the character meals, and these differ. Mike Newell, why don't you explain to our listeners what exactly entails a character meal? Excuse me.
Well, you know they're not my favorite.
That's why I picked on you.
Thank you. Basically, you just have your choice of breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and while you're sitting there eating,
You're tortured by characters.
just about, depending on the restaurant you go to, there are certain characters. Like I know at, well, they used to have at Old Key West. There used to be the Winnie the Pooh characters. I'm not sure if they still do that anymore because I haven't gone back since. But depending on the restaurant, there's probably a list, maybe on Deb's site, of the different restaurants that host the different characters. I know we used to go to 1900 Park Fair over at the Grand Floridian.
I was just going to say, 1900 Park Fair is probably one of the premier counter service meals, and there's different kinds. With I don't know why I keep saying counter service, character meals. You have say at 1900 Park Fair, which is a buffet style. You have in Epcot at Norway, the princess meal. There is a character meal. It's family style, along like they have the same thing at Ohana's. And Scopa, why don't you explain what a family style meal is?
A family style meal is let's picture a large circular table, and you have a family seated at this large circular table, and the waiters, servers will bring large dishes of food and put them in the middle of the table. In Ohana's, where you mentioned, Matt, there is a large Lazy Susan in the middle of the table, and on that is placed a plate of some kind, and they have dividers in the plate, and there are all kinds of food stuff that can be twirled around, and the Lazy Susan passed from person to person. And what happens is that as the food is used up, it is replenished and is brought to the table. It's not a case where Mary over here wants, chicken blah blah blah, and Mike over here wants, steak blah blah blah, and it's an individual kind of an ordering. Everybody just digs in and gets what they want.
And the other type of full service meal is, like Mike said, there with the ones that are really very very formal, and that is of course Victorian Albert's at the Grand Floridian. Thank you. And this one is really, Mike, I mean, this is not only is it very expensive, but it's very formal. You have personal servers that come to your table and really just kind of cater to your every whims. Rather than have a waiter that goes from your table to another table to another table into the kitchen, the waiter is really dedicated to you.
That's correct. The female servers, the female waiters are Victoria. The male servers are Albert. At least that's what I've been hearing. And as you sip your wine, as you sip your water, as you put your water back onto the table, before the glass hits the table, from what I've heard, the water is replenished. They pour water in there, and I mean they're very close by. If you need to have your nose wiped, I mean they're right there for you. I mean, and I'll tell you, I have had friends who have gone there, and it's one of those things where those who have gone there either love it or they hate it, and they don't hate it because of the price. I mean, you know what you're getting yourself into with the price before you make your reservation. At least I would hope you're intelligent enough to check the price before you do that. But what a lot of people have complained about is that they don't have the privacy that they would normally have in another restaurant, and that bothers people, especially if you're paying a lot of money to eat there. I mean, you should have some kind of privacy.
That's right. Now, with full-service meals, you have really a variety of prices you're going to pay. Obviously, Victorian Albert's is really at the top of the price chart, and it really ranges in terms of how much you're going to pay for a full-service meal. Some of them, generally, the full-service meals are more expensive than the counter-service meals. However, there are exceptions. Some meals are significantly cheaper than others. That you've got, depending on where it is, what meal it is. The Scopa, you can talk a little bit about your favorite full-service meal, which is over at Fort Wilderness.
It's not full-service, Matt. That's buffet. Trails End?
Yeah, it's technically a full-service. It's not a counter-service.
Well, it's not counter-service. It is a full-service, right? It is buffet. You're right. I'm sorry. It is full-service. Trails End, which Matt is mentioning, Trails End restaurant over at the Fort Wilderness Resort, is the best deal on the property. You can get very good quality food there for a very, very good price. And the reason why it's probably not visited as much is because it's off the beaten path. You do have to take a launch from the Magic Kingdom, or you drive to Fort Wilderness and take buses to get to this restaurant. But it's well worth the trip. It's like I said, it's the best. It's the best deal on the property, and almost guaranteed every single time I go to Walt Disney World, I eat there at least twice.
Now with full service dining, you've got what's called advanced dinner reservations. Now these are Disney hesitates to call them reservations in the sense that you have a reservation at 4:00 and you go and they have a table reserved for you. But they do have advanced dinners, ADRs as they're commonly known. And these replaced priority seatings back in I believe 1997, and since then, they have the advanced dining reservation system. And Scope, why don't you walk our listeners through how an ADR works?
An ADR works in this manner. You would call Disney Dining, and you would make an advanced dining reservation for a restaurant. Let's use my favorite restaurant, Le Cellier. And let's say I am interested in eating at Le Cellier sometime between 6 and 7 o'clock on this Friday night. So I would call Disney Dining, and I would ask for an ADR, and I would ask whatever would be available from 6 o'clock on. And they sometimes will give you some weird times like 6:10 or 6:20 rather than 6 o'clock or 6:30. And once you make that advanced dining reservation, what that does is that will not reserve a table, but it will give you the first available table for your party size from that point on. So, for instance, if I made an advanced dining reservation or an ADR for 6:10, then any time from 6:10 on, the very first table that will accommodate my dinner party will be made available to me. Now, here's a tip. You always want to get there at least 15 minutes before and check in. If you get there 15 minutes before your ADR and you check in, then you're pretty much guaranteed that you will be sitting down at the time at which you made the time for which you made your ADR. But if you get there at the time that you made your ADR, you may not be eating until 10, 15, 20 minutes after that. So the key is to get there early.
Yep, absolutely. And then when you're making your ADRs, you may say, well, what's the deal with making a reservation? Well, generally there's a 180-day window for making an advanced dining reservation for most restaurants at Walt Disney World. Some are a little bit more, some are a little bit less. I know that Mickey's Backyard Barbecue actually has 365 days in advance you can make one. And now you may say to yourself, well, why do I need so much time to make a reservation? Most people, certainly when I go in my local town, I make a reservation a couple hours before I want to show up to a place. But at Disney World, generally, not only is it good practice to do it, it's probably recommended because of the crowds that you're going to have to deal with. And when you say there's a 180-day window, there are a lot of places that will generally sell out for the dates that you want to go if you don't book it within really very close to that 180-day window.
That's true. That's true.
So you're going to want to, of course, you book your ADRs by calling the Disney hotline, which is 1-407-WDW-DINE, WDW-DINE, and you can make a reservation. You'll say which restaurant you'd like to dine at and tell them what time you're interested in. And if they have the time that you want, they'll give it to you right then and there. Otherwise, they'll give you some suggested times that could work for you. And assuming you find a time that works for you, then they'll take your name and information. Most of them are non-binding. There are some occasions where they actually ask for a credit card hold. Generally, these are for packages like the Fantasmic Dinner Package or the Candlelight Dinner Package, things like that where Disney wants to make sure you're actually definitely going to be there, so they're going to charge you if you don't show up to these. But generally, for the going to the park on whatever day, it's not as big of a deal. The other thing to keep in mind is that depending on what time of the year you go will dictate how far in advance you need to make a reservation for dining at a full-service restaurant. If you're going, say, the second week in September, which is pretty much a fairly dead time of the year, it's not as important as going at the other extreme end of things. Would probably be Christmas week, where it's going to be very, very crowded. The California Grill is one of those odd restaurants that requires credit card hold. And Scope, why don't you talk about the making reservations if you're going during a time where free dining is offered?
That's a good point, Matt, because when free dining is offered, this year it's being offered from, late August through late September, I think it is.
Yep.
One of the things that everyone has to keep in mind is that even if you're not using free dining, those free dining weeks are very, very difficult to make a walk-up reservation to any of the restaurants. The guests who are securing free dining will, as soon as they sign up their free dining package, they will be making calls and making their ADRs. So it's like, I mean, it's not good advice. It's like must advice. You really must call in advance if you are going down during free dining, regardless of whether you are on free dining or not. You need to make your reservations as soon as possible. I can tell you that I've been down there 2 times during free dining, and in both occasions, I have done for purposes of doing research for the unofficial guide. I have walked up to many restaurants and said, "Hey, I'd like to make an ADR for today," or whatever, and in at least 75% of the cases, they have turned around and said, "We don't have anything for a week." So that raised the flag, and that always has stuck with me, so that every time I hear about free dining, I always warn people, if you're going down during the free dining weeks, even though, as Matt said, it may not be the most crowded time of the year, the crowds will be at the restaurants, and you won't be able to just walk up and get an ADR just any time you want.
And we've got time for just to quickly talk about the counter service meals at Walt Disney World. Now you've got 2 kinds really. There's counter service, where you walk up to a Disney World cast member who's sitting behind a register. You order your meal, they deliver it, you then pay for it, and then the cast member behind another counter will actually prepare your meal for you and give it to you, kind of in a faux pas fast food kind of thing. The other kind of meals are where you have cafeteria/food courts, which Mike Scopa mentioned. These are generally the food courts are more prevalent in the resorts than in the parks. And these are kind of, you walk up to a station, whether it be the hot food station, you can order, eggs or roast beef. Yeah, exactly. Or you can go to the ice cream station or something like that, and then you bring your food and you go to the cashier. So you've got those kinds, and of course, finally you have Mike Scope again hit upon this earlier in the show. The fast casual / vendor food. These are the ice cream bars, the churros, some fresh fruit. Some people evidently get turkey legs. So you've got all sorts of different kinds of food over there for that. Well, that's it for us today. Again, this episode of Walt Disney World Today has been sponsored by Small World Vacations. Their team of 40 agents are authorized Disney vacation planners, and they're recommended by MouseSavers.com. So they're dedicated to your dreams and your dollars. So if you're interested in booking a trip to Walt Disney World, be sure to get a free price quote by going to Small World Vacations online at www.wdwvacations.com, where the magic begins. And that's it for us today. If you want to find our old episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, you can visit the Walt Disney World Today website at wdwtoday.com. You can also email us at questions at wdwtoday.com. For Lantis, Mike Scopa, and Mike Newell, I'm Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.